9th The Fall of the Uzumaki Clan. Survivors. Shin, I'm worried. Kushina's voice was filled with anxiety. She was smart. If they had encountered enemies so far from the clan grounds, she could only imagine the horrors that must have befallen Uzushiogakure. Worrying won't change anything. Shin shook his head. Despite not being well liked, he had received his due within the clan. He didn't want to see the Uzumaki clan destroyed. But he was powerless to stop it. He had known about the impending disaster, but who would have believed him? Besides, he didn't know when it would happen. Even if people believed him, they wouldn't have been able to prepare. The enemies had targeted the Uzumaki clan. Their attack was swift and brutal. In the original story, Uzushiogakure fell before Konoha could even send reinforcements. As for him saving the clan, don't make him laugh. He wasn't going to get cocky just because he'd taken out a Jonin. Going there would be suicide. They sat by the river, Kushina leaning against Shin. Shin was a transmigrant. His body was that of a 5-year-old, but his mind was not. Kushina, however, was just a 5-year-old girl. Even though children in the ninja world matured quickly, the events of the night had shaken her to her core. Only in Shin's arms did she feel a sense of security. Shin, promise me you'll never leave me. Kushina looked up at him, her eyes pleading. She was terrified. When Shin had faced those ninjas, she had been so afraid he would be killed. She was relieved he was okay. If he hadn't been, she didn't know if she would have had the courage to go on. The thought of being alone was unbearable. I promise, Kushina. I'll never leave you. Shin met her gaze, his voice firm and reassuring. Kushina hugged him tightly, burying her face in his shoulder. Exhaustion finally caught up with her, and she drifted off to sleep. Shin smiled as he watched her sleep. He pulled out his pouch and examined its contents. He had already checked the Jonin's pouch. Besides ninja tools and 2 jutsu scrolls, there were some soldier pills and rations. He opened the pouches of the 2 chunin. Kunai, shuriken, even senbon. More soldier pills, rations, and a few explosive tags. Explosive tags were valuable, but expensive. Their blast radius was small, but their destructive power was significant. He also found a jutsu scroll containing the chakra refinement technique in the basic Academy 3. The Academy 3 consisted of the substitution jutsu, transformation jutsu, and clone jutsu. They were the most basic E-rank jutsu. But basic didn't mean useless. The transformation and clone jutsu were easy to see through. Clones created with the clone jutsu couldn't attack. They were no match for shadow clones. The substitution jutsu, however, had its uses. It allowed for a quick swap with another object, useful for dodging attacks. The chunin had used it to escape Shin's attack. Of course, as the most basic jutsu, it wasn't invincible. Its effectiveness depended on the user. The substitution jutsu allowed the user to swap with another object, but it wasn't space-time ninjutsu. It relied on speed. So, it was less effective against stronger opponents who could easily see through it. It was just an E-rank jutsu. It couldn't compare to something like Sasuke Uchiha's Amenetejikara. Shin studied the Academy 3. He was a genius. It didn't take him long to master these simple jutsu. Hours passed. Dawn arrived, the sun peeking over the horizon. The warm sunlight seemed to dispel the darkness and gloom. Kushina woke up, rubbing her eyes. She looked around frantically, calming down only when she saw Shin. Morning. Have something to eat. Shin handed her some dried meat. It was part of the food they had hastily packed before fleeing their home. I'm not hungry, Kushina said, shaking her head. It wasn't that she wasn't hungry. She simply didn't have the appetite. You have to eat. We need our strength in case we run into danger. Persuaded by Shin, Kushina ate a few pieces of meat. I sent out shadow clones to scout. The invaders have left, Shin informed her. He had sent out 10 shadow clones to gather information. The invaders had left around 4 in the morning. And Shin knew they were safe now. because the system had awarded him the common replication card for completing the survival mission. They left. What about the clan grounds? Kushina's face lit up, but then her expression turned to worry. Shin shook his head, remembering the images his shadow clones had sent back. It was a bloodbath. He didn't know if there were any survivors. His clones hadn't found any. Kushina's heart sank. She knew it wasn't good. But as long as Shin was okay, she didn't care about the rest. After resting for a while, Shin and Kushina left the forest and headed towards the clan grounds. They could smell the stench of blood from a distance. Kushina, don't be scared, Shin said, holding her trembling hand. Kushina nodded bravely and continued walking. But when they finally reached the clan grounds and saw the carnage, Kushina threw up. Even though Shin had seen the images through his shadow clones, the sight still made his stomach churn. Over 200 Uzumaki, practically all dead. The blood. It was truly a river of blood. And it wasn't just the blood of the Uzumaki. There must have been casualties among the invaders as well, though their bodies were nowhere to be seen. They must have taken their dead with them. Kushina, are you okay? Kushina shook her head, the meager breakfast she'd eaten now gone. The scene was too horrific. Shin, our clan. The Uzumaki clan is gone, Shin said with a sigh. His desire for strength intensified. In this world, without power, this was the consequence. If the Uzumaki clan had someone like Hashirama Senju or Madara Uchiha, would they have met such a fate? Crack. A faint sound, but Shin's sharp ears picked it up. He looked towards the source. Who's there? Don't kill me. A young girl's terrified voice. Then a scream, followed by silence. Red hair. A survivor. Shin pulled Kushina towards the sound. A girl their age lay unconscious in a pool of blood in front of a burned-out house. A girl their age lay unconscious in a pool of blood in front of a burned-out house. There was a cellar nearby. She must have hidden there to survive. She must have made a noise while climbing out, alerting Shin. Then, the sight of the destruction must have been too much for her. Every 250 PS equals bonus chapter. If you like the story, please leave a review. Push the story forward with your power stones. 30 comments 0 vote. And Konoha's reinforcements, Tsunade. That's Uzumaki Akiko, Kushina said, surprised, as she looked at the unconscious girl. Oh, you know her. Shin didn't recognize the girl, but it seemed Kushina did. We've met a few times, but we're not close. Kushina was only really close to Shin. She knew other kids in the clan, but they weren't friends. A short while later, Akiko woke up. She looked around in a panic, but calmed down when she saw Shin and Kushina's red hair. Red hair was a trademark of the Uzumaki clan. Of course, there were exceptions, like Choji Akimichi's father, Choza, who also had red hair. But most people associated red hair with the Uzumaki. Who are you? Akiko didn't recognize Shin and Kushina. She guessed they were Uzumaki survivors, but it was better to be safe than sorry. It wasn't surprising that she didn't know them. Shin and Kushina lived far from the clan grounds. Even when they had lived within the clan, they hadn't interacted much. Shin had never even seen Akiko before. Same as you, Shin replied simply. Akiko fell silent, her eyes filled with sadness as she looked at the destruction around her. Tears streamed down her face as she thought of her parents. Should we comfort her? Kushina asked Shin. How? Let her cry. She'll have to rely on herself from now on. Being strong is better. Shin shook his head and sat on a nearby rock, contemplating their future. He had two choices: leave with Kushina and live a life on the run, or wait for Konoha's reinforcements and go with them to Konoha. He glanced at Kushina and made up his mind. They would go to Konoha. It was the safer option. With their distinctive red hair, wandering around would make them targets. And as two young children, where could they even go? It would be incredibly difficult. Going to Konoha offered safety and security. Going to Konoha offered safety and security. As long as they didn't draw too much attention to themselves, they would be fine. Especially with Uzumaki Mito still alive. Even the scheming Danzo wouldn't dare try anything. In Konoha, Shin could also learn the basics of being a shinobi, which were essential. Konoha was the best choice. But if they went there, he would have to change Kushina's fate as the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. He didn't want that for her. The Nine-Tails' power was immense, a great asset if used correctly, but it was also a ticking time bomb. And being Nine-Tails Jinchuriki meant a life under constant surveillance, with Anbu watching your every move. As for himself, Shin never wanted to become a Jinchuriki. He simply didn't need the Nine-Tails. With his perfect sage body, once he grew stronger, he could take on the Nine-Tails single-handedly. And with his Sharingan, he could probably subdue the beast with a glance. With the system at his disposal, why would he need the Nine-Tails? But most importantly, he didn't want something else living inside him. It was an unsettling thought. Shin's gaze shifted to Akiko. It wasn't just him and Kushina anymore. There was another Uzumaki survivor to consider. Kushina, come here. I need to talk to you. Kushina, though curious, walked over. Kushina, Konoha's reinforcements might arrive soon. They might take us to Konoha. If we go, remember, don't stand out too much. Shin advised. When choosing a Jinchuriki, they would look for someone with talent. Standing out too much might attract the attention of the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, and the shadowy Danzo. Hiruzen would be fine, but Danzo. That was a different story. Kushina didn't understand why Shin was saying this, but she nodded, committing his words to memory. Another day passed. The sun began to set, casting long, eerie shadows over the blood-soaked ruins of Uzushiogakure. Thump, thump, thump. Footsteps. Shin's senses went on high alert. His left hand went to his pouch, gripping an explosive tag. His right hand held a katana. He was a bit small to be wielding a katana, but he had found it among the debris. It had a few chips, but it was still usable. Kushina moved closer to Shin, and Akiko, frightened, huddled next to them. 3 kids. A woman with striking blonde hair and cold eyes approached them. Despite her beauty, her expression was intimidating. Several other ninja followed behind her. You're Uzumaki, right? Don't be afraid. I'm a Konoha shinobi. My name is Tsunade. Tsunade's harsh gaze softened. Seeing the state of Uzushiogakure had filled her with rage, hence her initial coldness. Hearing her name, Shin relaxed, but he couldn't help but stare. He couldn't believe this was Tsunade. She was so flat. He couldn't fathom how she would transform into the, well, busty woman she would become. Are you all that's left of the Uzumaki clan? Tsunade asked. I don't know. Maybe there are other survivors. Shin was certain there were others, but they had either escaped the land of whirlpools or were in hiding. Let's search the area. See if we can find anyone else. Damn it, if I find out who did this, I'll. Tsunade's killing intent flared. The Uzumaki were her grandmother's people. They had a long-standing alliance with the Senju clan. During the Warring States period, the Uzumaki had fought alongside the Senju against the Uchiha. Tsunade was furious, but it was useless now. She had rushed to the land of whirlpools as soon as she received the news, but it was too late. The enemy had annihilated the Uzumaki clan in a single night. They must have planned this for a long time. Shin couldn't help but roll his eyes at Tsunade's tough talk. Empty threats were so childish. Unfortunately, Tsunade caught his expression. She glared at him. This little brat was looking down on her. Hey, brat, what was that look for? What look? Shin feigned innocence. Don't play dumb. I saw you. You were totally dissing me. Shin wanted to nod, but he thought better of it. Tsunade was known for her temper. She might just punch him. Nope, not me. You must be mistaken, Shin denied, maintaining his facade of innocence. Every 250 PS equals bonus chapter. If you like the story, please leave a review. Push the story forward with your power stones. 13 comments, 0 vote. 11 leaving the land of whirlpools. Journey to Konoha. But she couldn't exactly punish him for that. She wasn't going to beat up a child, no matter how infuriating he was. Suddenly, Tsunade chuckled. Tsunade glared at Shin. The little punk was clearly looking down on her, yet he denied it. You've got guts, kid. Recovering from your clan's destruction so quickly. She placed a hand on Shin's head, ruffling his hair with more force than necessary. As she messed up his hair, she realized how soft it was. It was almost addictive. Looking at his cute little face, she couldn't resist pinching his cheek. So soft, so adorable. Kushina, seeing Tsunade manhandling Shin, yelled, "Hey, stop that." Shin wasn't happy either. Tsunade might enjoy pinching his cheek, but he found it extremely annoying. Having his face pinched by a woman. Humiliating. Get your hands off me. I don't like being touched by men, Shin said, scowling. Men. Tsunade froze. Was he blind? Where did he get the idea that she was a man? Kid, you need to get your eyes checked. I'm a woman, not a man, Tsunade said through gritted teeth. Ha. I may be young, but I know the difference between a man and a woman. You don't exactly scream, woman, to me. Shin's eyes drifted towards her chest, his expression a mix of disdain and disbelief. Tsunade's face flushed red. This brat was deliberately mocking her. Princess Tsunade, we found 2 survivors. Tsunade, about to give Shin a piece of her mind, glared at him one last time before turning towards the newcomers. 2 males, one around Shin's age, the other in his 20s. Both Uzumaki survivors. Shin recognized the boy. Uzumaki Kai, long time no see. How's your leg? Shin gave Kai a sly smile, which earned him a glare filled with anger and a hint of fear. Kai was the son of Uzumaki Hikaru, the taijutsu master whose physique Shin had copied. Shin had broken the boy's leg during their previous encounter. He hadn't expected Kai to survive the destruction of the clan. The kid was lucky to be alive. Tsunade's eyes flickered between Shin and Kai. There was definitely bad blood between these two. But she wasn't interested in getting involved in a squabble between kids. She turned to the older Uzumaki. What's your name? I'm Uzumaki Hikaru. A Jonin of the Uzumaki clan. Do you know who attacked the clan? Tsunade asked. I don't know. I was scared, so I hid right away. I don't know what happened after that. Hikaru hung his head in shame, earning a scornful look from Tsunade. This guy was older than her, yet he was a coward. When his clan was in danger, he hid like a rat. Tsunade wasn't even as old as this Hikaru. Despite calling Shin a kid, she was only 16. But in the ninja world, 16 wasn't that young. During the Warring States period, people were already married with children at that age. Tsunade ordered her men to continue searching for survivors while investigating who was behind the attack. Judging by the water damage and the traces of lightning release, she had a pretty good idea. If her suspicions were correct, there wasn't much she could do. Kid, what's your name? Tsunade asked Shin. Shin was getting tired of being called kid. Too bad he couldn't beat Tsunade in a fight. He estimated her strength to be at elite Jonin level, definitely stronger than him. I'm Uzumaki Shin. And don't call me kid. You'll regret it when I'm stronger than you. Regret it? Hey, I'll be waiting for that day, Tsunade said with a smirk. Shin snorted. She might be looking down on him now, but she'd sing a different tune when he surpassed her. Shin, I'm hungry, Kushina tugged at his sleeve. Shin took out some dry rations and jerky. It wasn't much, but it would fill their stomachs for now. 3 days later, the bodies of the Uzumaki clan members were buried, including Shin's grandfather, the clan elder. Seeing his grandfather's body, Shin felt a strange mix of emotions. He hadn't been close to the man. They had barely interacted. But he still felt a pang of sadness. After the burial, they set off for Konoha with Tsunade. Shin carried a katana strapped to his back. It was over 3 feet long, with a simple gold design on the hilt. He had found it in the Uzumaki clan shrine. It was incredibly sharp, able to slice through stone with ease. He hadn't tested it on steel yet, though. They sailed towards the Land of Fire. Shin stood at the stern, watching the Land of Whirlpools disappear over the horizon. Kushina stood beside him. They didn't know when they would return. Feeling sad to leave, Shin and Kushina turned to see Tsunade standing behind them. Kushina puffed out her cheeks, glaring at Tsunade. Shin was also keeping his distance from Tsunade. The woman was relentless, constantly ruffling his hair and pinching his cheeks. He was annoyed, but he didn't want to reveal his strength, so he hadn't resisted much. He wondered if she had some weird fetish. Kushina's reason for disliking Tsunade was simple. She hadn't even ruffled Shin's hair or pinched his cheeks. Yet this woman was doing all the things she hadn't done. It felt like Tsunade was stealing Shin away from her. When you get to Konoha, think of it as your new home. In time, you'll forget all the unpleasantness. HMPH, we don't need your comforting words. Come on, Shin. Kushina glared at Tsunade and dragged Shin to the cabin. This woman was the source of all her unpleasantness. That little brat. Tsunade noticed the hostility. Could she be jealous? Does she like Shin? Tsunade wondered. Kids these days, maturing so fast. That girl's only 5, right? Every 250 PS equals bonus chapter. If you like the story, please leave a review. Push the story forward with your power stones. 27 comments, 0 vote. 12 ambush on the road. Shin, stay away from that woman from now on, Kushina said seriously once they were inside the cabin. Yeah, no arguments here. Shin wasn't keen on being manhandled and unable to retaliate. It was infuriating. He'd get her back when he was stronger. For now, he'd steer clear of Tsunade and her vice-like grip. His cheeks were still sore. Just wait, Tsunade, Shin thought darkly. Hours later, the ship finally reached the shore. Kushina, pale and nauseous, leaned heavily against Shin. Shin, I don't feel so good. My head is spinning. Shin supported her, surprised that she was seasick. It was probably because this was her first time on a ship. We're here, Kushina. Hang in there. Tisk, tisk, getting seasick. How embarrassing, Tsunade quipped, arms crossed. Kushina's open hostility had irked her. She didn't want to stoop to the level of a child, but seeing Kushina's pathetic state, she couldn't resist a jab. I am not seasick. Kushina weakly shook her head, trying to maintain a defiant front despite her nausea. Tsunade merely clicked her tongue. Continuing this squabble with a child was beneath her. Let's rest for a bit before we continue. Seeing that not only Kushina, but also Akiko and Kai, were suffering from seasickness, Tsunade called for a break. Shin was fine. He didn't get sick. And Hikaru, being a Donin, was also unaffected. They rested, ate some rations, and then resumed their journey. How long will it take to reach Konoha from here? Shin asked Tsunade. Come closer, and tell you, Tsunade said with a sly grin, beckoning him with a finger. Nah, I don't need to know that badly. Shin and Kushina trailed behind, taking in the scenery of the Land of Fire. They had set foot on Land of Fire soil as soon as they disembarked. While not the largest of the 5 great nations, it definitely had the most fertile land. The trees here were lusher than those in the Land of Whirlpools, and the people seemed more prosperous. Shin-chan, how are we going to live in Konoha? Kushina asked, her voice laced with worry. Same as always. Don't stress, Kushina. And please, stop calling me Shin-chan. Shin patted her head reassuringly. Kushina felt a wave of warmth. She was apprehensive about this unfamiliar place called Konoha, but with Shin by her side, her fears seemed to melt away. As long as she was with Shin, it didn't matter where they were. Gradually, Kushina's anxiety lessened. The shadow of the Uzumaki clan's destruction seemed a little less dark. What are you two chatting about? Tsunade had fallen back to join them. Wow, you actually have time to talk to us. Shin remarked. We're escorting you, but we're in Land of Fire now. The most we'll encounter are bandits. It's safe here. Tsunade had been vigilant before entering Land of Fire, but now she was completely relaxed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A volley of kunai and shuriken rained down on them, some even strapped with explosive tags. Shin's face paled. He couldn't worry about hiding his strength now. He grabbed Kushina and dodged. The Senju ninjas, though caught off guard, were still highly skilled. They reacted quickly, shielding the Uzumaki survivors and evading the attack. Tsunade's eyes widened. She had been about to pull Shin and Kushina out of the way, but Shin had reacted first, moving with incredible speed. She estimated his speed to be on par with her own. Looks like that kid Shin isn't simple after all. She quickly dodged the projectiles. Now wasn't the time to ponder this. She had to deal with the attackers. Her eyes turned cold. To be ambushed within Land of Fire borders was unacceptable. And she had just told Shin that it was safe here. This was a slap in the face. Tsunade felt her cheeks burn with shame. These attackers would pay. Shin and Kushina took cover behind a large tree, Shin's arm protectively around Kushina. His eyes darted around, alert for any movement. If only I could awaken the Uzumaki clan's Mind's Eye of Kagura. The Mind's Eye of Kagura was a sensory technique unique to the Uzumaki clan, one of the most powerful in the ninja world. When activated, it allowed the user to sense chakra fluctuations within a radius of several dozen kilometers. With a known chakra signature, it could pinpoint the target's location, movement, number of people, and even their speed. Its sensory capabilities were comparable to the Byakugan. Unfortunately, very few Uzumaki could awaken this ability. In the original story, only Karen was known to possess it. Shin didn't know he could awaken it. If he had the Mind's Eye of Kagura, he could easily pinpoint the enemy's location and movements, making it easier to defend against them. Unlike now, where he was forced to rely on his senses and constant vigilance to avoid being caught off guard. Shinobi were masters of assassination. Surprise attacks were their specialty. Kushina, don't be afraid. I'll protect you. I'm not afraid, Kushina said, clenching her fists. She hated being the damsel in distress. I have to train harder. She resolved to become stronger so she wouldn't be a burden to Shin. As Shin and Kushina hid, the battle raged. Over 20 ninjas, clad in identical uniforms and without forehead protectors, emerged from the forest. It was impossible to tell which village they were from. They charged towards the Senju ninjas, weapons drawn. Tsunade channeled chakra throughout her body, activating her monstrous strength. A powerful aura enveloped her. Die. She punched one of the attackers, sending him flying like a ragdoll. He was dead before he hit the ground. That was the power of Tsunade's monstrous strength. Every 250 PS equals bonus chapter. If you like the story, please leave a review. Push the story forward with your power stones. 20 comments 0 vote. 13 Arrival at Konoha. Yikes, that's brutal. Shin watched from his hiding spot as Tsunade pulverized another ninja with a single punch, the impact leaving the poor guy looking like he'd been hit by a truck. Shin winced. Twice. This woman's strength is ridiculous. I must not. Wait, what am I even thinking? Shin, what are you muttering about? Kushina nudged him. Nothing. Kushina, Don't you think she's a bit violent? Shin eyed the mangled remains of the ninja. He wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of one of those punches. Violent? Nah, she's all right, Kushina said, her eyes practically sparkling with admiration. Shin instinctively took a step back. Did Kushina have violent tendencies? He suddenly remembered that Kushina's temper wasn't exactly angelic. Shin turned his attention back to Tsunade. Her strength was probably at elite Jonin level, but she was displaying power far beyond that. One-punching ninjas like they were toddlers. Who sent these guys? Shin observed the attackers. Initially, he thought they were after the Uzumaki survivors. But now it seemed they were targeting the Senju. He noticed that Uzumaki Hikaru was no longer under the protection of the Senju ninjas. If the attackers were after the Uzumaki, they would have gone for Hikaru. A strange thought crossed Shin's mind. Could these ninjas be from Konoha? It wasn't impossible. They were in Land of Fire, after all. If over 20 foreign ninjas could infiltrate Land of Fire without Konoha, the most powerful hidden village, noticing something was fishy. Man, maybe going to Konoha isn't such a safe bet after all. Perhaps Konoha had something to do with the destruction of Uzushiogakure. Konoha had only sent Tsunade and 9 other Senju to aid the Uzumaki. It was a good thing the invaders had already left. Otherwise, this rescue team would have been slaughtered. Now they were being attacked within Land of Fire, and the attackers seemed to be targeting the Senju. Considering the future of the Senju clan, with only Tsunade remaining, Shin's suspicions grew stronger. But even if he was right, he wouldn't say anything. It was just speculation. He had no proof. And even if he did, what good would it do? Loose lips sink ships. Some things were better left unsaid. He didn't know if these were Hiruzen's men or Danzo's. His gut said Danzo. Tsunade was Hiruzen's disciple. Hiruzen wasn't a saint, but he wasn't evil either. He wouldn't attack his own student. But Danzo? That guy was capable of anything. I'll have to watch out for Danzo in Konoha. But as long as I keep a low profile, he shouldn't notice me. But Tsunade had seen him move with incredible speed while dodging the kunai and shuriken. Hopefully, she wouldn't mention it. Damn it. Tsunade noticed one of the attackers cutting down Senju ninjas with ruthless efficiency. She estimated his strength to be at elite Jonin level, perhaps slightly weaker than her, but far stronger than the others. He had already killed 3 Senju Jonin. Tsunade's eyes blazed with fury. She tried to reach him, but she was blocked by Chunin, who fought with suicidal desperation. Get out of my way, you little ants. Tsunade slammed her foot into the ground, creating a spiderweb of cracks. The earth shook, throwing the Chunin off balance. Some of them even stumbled and fell into the fissures, unable to move. Tsunade ignored them and charged towards the elite Jonin. The Jonin retreated, shooting Tsunade a cold look. Retreat! He yelled. The attackers vanished into the forest without hesitation. Tsunade glared at their retreating figures, frustrated. They had managed to capture one alive, but he had committed suicide before they could interrogate him. Shin and Kushina emerged from their hiding spot. Shin looked at Tsunade, her eyes red with rage, and shook his head. This was a tragedy. 3 Senju Jonin were dead. Only 6 remained, and they were all wounded. Jonin were valuable assets to any hidden village, even more so to a clan. The Senju clan was a shadow of its former glory. Besides Tsunade, they only had 9 Jonin, and now 3 were gone. Collect their bodies. Let's go, Tsunade said grimly. They continued towards Konoha, the mood somber. 2 days later, they finally reached Konoha, the most powerful hidden village in the ninja world. The rest of the journey was uneventful. You all head back and see to their burial. I'll take these children to see the Hokage, Tsunade instructed the remaining Senju. They nodded and headed towards the Senju clan compound. Tsunade led Shin, Kushina, Akiko, Kai, and Hikaru, the 5 Uzumaki survivors, to the Hokage's office. Upon reaching the office, Tsunade punched the door to splinters. Hiruzen Sarutobi looked up, his eyebrow twitching as he saw Tsunade. Ah, Tsunade, you're back. How did it go with the Uzumaki clan? He didn't even bother mentioning the door. This wasn't the first time she'd done this. The Uzumaki clan is gone. These are the survivors, Tsunade said, her voice heavy with grief. What? Gone? How? Hiruzen shot to his feet. I was too late. The clan was already destroyed when I arrived. Tsunade clenched her fists. If only they had received the news sooner, perhaps this tragedy could have been averted. I see. Hiruzen sat back down, his gaze sweeping over Shin and the other children, assessing them. Shin squirmed under his scrutiny. Hiruzen's eyes were sharp. This was Hiruzen in his prime, not the old man he would become. His gaze seemed to pierce through you, seeing all your secrets. Shin didn't like it one bit. Every 250 PS equals bonus chapter. If you like the story, please leave a review. Push the story forward with your power stones. 21 comments, 0 vote. Pissed. Download the app for additional rewards. More events, more perks. Winning you more free perks. Download now. Dragon X. Download app now. 14. Settling into the Senju compound. Hiruzen observed the children for a moment, then his face took on a mournful expression. It grieves me to hear of the tragedy that befell the Uzumaki clan. Rest assured, Konoha and the Uzumaki are steadfast allies. We will find the perpetrators and bring them to justice. For now, make yourselves at home in Konoha. You are safe here. No one will harm you. Hiruzen's words seemed to ease the tension. Hikaru and Kai visibly relaxed. Lord Hokage, please, you must find those who did this. Kai cried. Akiko also wept, tears flowing freely as she remembered her loved ones. We will avenge the Uzumaki clan. They are our allies, and anyone who harms them is an enemy of Konoha, Hiruzen declared solemnly. Hiruzen was a skilled leader. His words calmed even Kushina, who had been on edge. Shin could tell because Kushina's grip on his hand loosened. When they first arrived in Konoha, Kushina had been clinging to him, her small hand tightly gripping his. Coming to this unfamiliar place, it was impossible for a 5-year-old not to be nervous. Tsunade, how about we have them stay at the Senju compound? Hiruzen turned to Tsunade. That's fine, but there's something you need to explain to me first. Bam. Tsunade slammed her fist on Hiruzen's desk, the solid wood splitting under the force. Sandame, we were attacked by unknown assailants within Land of Fire borders. What's going on? Hiruzen's eyes widened. He stood up. You were attacked. Seeing the fury in Tsunade's eyes, he knew it was true. Had ninjas from another village infiltrated Land of Fire? How many were there? Hiruzen asked, his voice grave. 25. At least 10 Jonin, and one of them was an elite. Hiruzen's expression darkened. That was a significant force. If they were indeed foreign ninjas, this could be a serious threat. Tsunade, this is my oversight. I failed to detect such a large force within our borders. I will have the Anbu investigate this thoroughly. He knew that Tsunade's anger meant there had been casualties. Let me know when you have more information. Tsunade left the Hokage's office with the children. Just as they stepped out, they saw a man with a grim aura approaching. Tsunade frowned. It was Danzo. He held a high position in Konoha, but Tsunade loathed him. He was a man who operated in the shadows, his methods ruthless and underhanded. Tsunade, welcome back. Are these the Uzumaki survivors? Danzo's eyes flickered as he looked at children. He still had both his eyes and his arm. He hadn't undergone his future modifications yet. Tsunade scoffed and walked away, the children following behind. As they left, Shin glanced at Danzo. He recognized him instantly. The scar on his chin was a dead giveaway. Danzo scowled. Tsunade had just disrespected him, just like the rest of the Senju clan. He entered the Hokage's office, noting the shattered door with a frown. He turned to Hiruzen. Danzo, What brings you here? Hiruzen asked, his brow furrowed. I have something to discuss with you. As do I. Hiruzen walked to the window, watching Tsunade lead the Uzumaki survivors away. He waved a hand. The Anbu guards hidden in the shadows vanished. Only Hiruzen and Danzo remained in the office. Danzo, Tsunade said she was attacked on her way back. I want to know if you had anything to do with it. Hiruzen's gaze was sharp and accusatory. HMPH, are you implying that I attacked your student? Danzo snorted, his eyes narrowing. I had nothing to do with it. Danzo stormed out, abandoning whatever he had wanted to discuss. It was you, wasn't it, Danzo? Hiruzen sat down heavily. He knew Danzo better than anyone. Even though Danzo hadn't betrayed himself, Hiruzen could see through his lies. Punish Danzo. He had no concrete evidence. And even if he did, he would protect Danzo. He would have to find a way to appease Tsunade. This is the Senju clan compound. You'll be staying here. Most of the houses are empty. Choose whichever you like. Tsunade led the children into the compound. It's so big. Even bigger than the Uzumaki clan grounds, Akiko exclaimed. Shin looked around. It was eerily empty. It seemed the once great Senju clan was a shadow of its former self. Kushina, which one do you want? Shin asked. Shin, and you, little girl, come with me, Tsunade said. Shin looked at her questioningly. Kid, you weren't exactly subtle back there. I saw what you did, Tsunade said with a knowing smirk before turning and walking away. Shin's face stiffened. He hesitated for a moment, then took Kushina's hand and followed Tsunade. Kai watched them leave, jealousy burning in his eyes. Why is Lady Tsunade treating him differently? He muttered resentfully. Akiko didn't think too much about it. Having a place to stay was good enough for her. She chose an empty house and started cleaning. Why are we following her? Kushina grumbled. Shin shrugged. Tsunade had seen a glimpse of his true strength. He just hoped she wouldn't tell anyone. If she did, life in Konoha would become complicated. They followed Tsunade to a small courtyard. There are a few empty rooms over there. You can stay here, Tsunade said. Thank you, Lady Tsunade. Shin looked around the courtyard. It was much nicer than the other houses they had seen. Does anyone live here? He asked. Yes, I do. It gets lonely living alone, so I thought I'd have you, my interesting little friend, stay here. Tsunade looked at Shin with amusement. She was intrigued by this unusual child. And you too, little girl. You're welcome, Tsunade said to Kushina. I won't thank you. Kushina snapped, clearly annoyed at being treated as an afterthought. Every 250 PS equals bonus chapter. If you like the story, please leave a review. Push the story forward with your power stones. 30 comments 0 vote. 15 too exceptional for this world. In the living room, Shin and Kushina sat facing Tsunade. They had finished tidying up their rooms, and now Shin felt it was time to have a chat with Tsunade. She knew he was hiding his strength. While she didn't know the extent of it, she knew he wasn't just an ordinary child. If she told the Sandaime, knowing his personality, he would definitely have Anbu keep an eye on Shin. Shin didn't want to be monitored. It would expose his secrets and complicate things. Lady Tsunade, there's something I need to talk to you about. Oh. Go ahead. Tsunade took a sip from her cup, her eyes twinkling with amusement. She wasn't stupid. She had a good idea what Shin wanted to talk about. Lady Tsunade, you're aware that I'm not exactly normal, strength-wise. Shin didn't beat around the bush. There was no point. It was already out in the open. Indeed. The speed you displayed when we were attacked was quite surprising. Tsunade's gaze was intense. She had been genuinely shocked. Shin's speed rivaled her own. It was hard to believe a 5-year-old could move that fast. Well, it's not that unusual. People exhibit superhuman strength in moments of danger. It was probably just an adrenaline rush. Shin made up a flimsy excuse. Hey, you think I'm an idiot? I'm a medical ninja. Tsunade scoffed. What Shin described was possible. People could unleash incredible power in life or death situations. But such bursts came at a cost, either a shortened lifespan or even death. Shin, however, was perfectly fine. This wasn't just an adrenaline rush. He was trying to fool her, and she wasn't falling for it. Okay, fine. I'm a bit stronger than I look. But I need you to keep it a secret, Lady Tsunade. Shin knew Tsunade wasn't easily fooled, so he dropped the act. There was no point. It would only make her more suspicious. Why should I? Tsunade was puzzled. Why hide his talent? He was just a child, yet he could move with such speed. Regardless of the method, he was a genius. Lady Tsunade, have you ever heard the saying? A tree that stands taller than the rest will be felled by the wind. A mound that rises above the shore will be eroded by the current. One who walks above others will be criticized by the masses. When someone is too exceptional, they attract not only admiration but also envy. And envy is a dangerous thing. It can twist people beyond recognition. Shin's words startled Tsunade. She stared at him as if he were a monster. I haven't heard that saying before, but I understand the sentiment. You make a good point. I'm starting to doubt you're really a 5-year-old. Tsunade eyed him skeptically. If these words had come from someone much older, she wouldn't have been surprised. But Shin was only 5. Shin coughed awkwardly. He might have overdone it with the profound act. Don't ask me how I know these things. I've always been too exceptional for my own good, always attracting envy and jealousy. Shin tilted his chin up, a smug expression on his face. Tsunade burst out laughing. You're quite the character. It's not an act. It's the truth. I'm so used to an extraordinary life that I want to experience what it's like to be normal. Tsunade and Kushina both stared at him, speechless. One word echoed in their minds: show off. Shin smirked inwardly. He had successfully diverted her attention from his strength. Fine, I'll keep your secret. But you have to agree to a few conditions, Tsunade said. A few? Are you sure it's not just one? Shin smiled, but inwardly, he was groaning. Yes, a few, not one, Tsunade said triumphantly. Let's see how you weasel your way out of this, kid. As long as they're not unreasonable, I suppose I can agree, Shin said cautiously. Kushina's expression changed. She glared at Tsunade. Don't you dare ask for anything outrageous. Don't worry, I won't make things difficult for you, Tsunade said, completely ignoring Kushina. Kushina slammed her hand on the table, fuming. This woman was deliberately ignoring her. First, from now on, when I ruffle your hair or pinch your cheeks, you're not allowed to resist or dodge. Shin's face fell. Kushina's expression mirrored his. Old hag. You just want to take advantage of Shin. Kushina jumped onto her chair, glaring at Tsunade. What did you just call me? Tsunade was furious. She was only 16, and this little girl was calling her an old hag. You heard me. Cougar. Kushina was fearless when it came to Shin. Little girl, if you weren't so young, I'd teach you some manners. HMPH, old hag, if I were your age, I'd be the one teaching you some manners. Tsunade and Kushina locked eyes, the air crackling with tension. Ahem, shouldn't we focus on the important matters at hand? I agree to your condition, Lady Tsunade, Shin interjected. Tsunade narrowed her eyes. Shin had been so resistant to her touch before, why the sudden change of heart? Was he up to something? She wasn't going to underestimate him now. In truth, Shin was playing the long game. He'd let her have her fun for now, but he'd get his revenge later, with interest. He'd make her regret taking advantage of him. Shin, you agreed. Kushina looked at him, betrayed, then turned away, refusing to acknowledge him. Seeing Kushina's anger, Tsunade felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Then she mentally slapped herself. Why was she competing with a 5-year-old? Now, onto my other conditions, Tsunade announced. She watched Shin closely, trying to gauge his reaction. But to her disappointment, his expression remained unchanged. He even gestured for her to continue. Tsunade's suspicion grew. Something was off. She had no idea that Shin was planning to settle the score in the future, with interest. Every 250 PS equals bonus chapter. If you like the story, please leave a review. Push the story forward with your power stones. 24 comments 0 vote. 16 A spar with Tsunade. Weren't you going to tell me your other conditions? Cat got your tongue. Shin looked at Tsunade expectantly. I haven't quite decided yet. I'll let you know later. Tsunade looked at Shin, her mind still searching for suitable conditions. You might not get another chance. Shin's words held a hidden meaning. He was confident that his strength would soon surpass Tsunade's. With his perfect sage body and the system's cheat, his growth rate was unpredictable, even to him. Speaking of which, I'm curious about your strength. Come with me to the training grounds. Tsunade stood up and led Shin to her private training area behind the courtyard. It was a spacious area. Kushina trailed behind them, her cheeks puffed out like a disgruntled chipmunk. She was still sulking. All right, Shin, let's spar. Wait, what? Shin stared at Tsunade in disbelief. Spar with her? Was she joking? He was no match for her right now. He wasn't into masochism. Don't worry, I'll go easy on you, Tsunade said reassuringly. Go for it, Shin. Beat her. Kushina cheered, pumping her little fist. Kushina, are you crazy? If I could beat her, I would. But I can't. Do you want to see me get pulverized? Shin whispered to Kushina. Pulverized? That bad? On second thought. Kushina recalled Tsunade's brutal display during the ambush and shook her head. One punch could turn a person into a mangled mess. Fighting her was definitely risky. How about we settle this peacefully? I'm not a fan of violence, Shin said to Tsunade, spreading his hands. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. She chuckled. Fine, if you don't want to fight, then you can just take a beating. With that, she threw a punch at Shin. Feeling the force of the blow, Shin's eyes widened. Was she serious? He didn't think she would actually hurt him, but his instinct screamed at him to dodge. Quick reflexes. Tsunade retracted her fist, impressed. Even a Chunin wouldn't have been able to dodge that. Hold on. Shin quickly stopped her as she prepared to attack again. There's no benefit for me in fighting you. So, I'll have to decline. Benefit? What kind of benefit do you want? Tsunade asked. Well, if you teach me an A-rank jutsu, I wouldn't mind sparring with you, Shin said, his eyes gleaming. If she refused, he wouldn't lose anything and would avoid a beating. If she agreed, he'd gain an A-rank jutsu. It was a win-win situation. You're a shrewd one, aren't you? Fine, I agree. I can part with an A-rank jutsu. Tsunade said nonchalantly. As the Senju clan princess, if he had asked for an S-rank jutsu, she might have hesitated. But an A-rank jutsu? She didn't mind. She was more interested in uncovering Shin's secrets. All right then, please go easy on me, Lady Tsunade. Shin stepped back, putting some distance between them. He focused on Tsunade. This was a chance to test his strength. Of course, there were some things he wouldn't use, like the Rasengan and the adamantine sealing chains. The chains were fine, but using the Rasengan would raise too many questions. It would cause a commotion. After all, the Rasengan was a jutsu that required no hand seals. The most impressive thing about the Rasengan wasn't its power, although it was powerful. There were other A-rank jutsu that were stronger. But the fact that it didn't require hand seals made it unique. No hand seals meant instant activation. In a life-or-death battle, even a fraction of a second could make all the difference. Besides, Shin wasn't planning on going all out. He always kept some cards up his sleeve. He knew Tsunade would keep her word about not revealing his strength, But he was still used to hiding his true abilities. You can make the first move, Tsunade said. Then I won't hold back. Shin wasn't going